Good morning. New York City is a progressive city. New York State is a progressive state, but New York City should lead in its caring and treatment of undocumented immigrants in this city and in this state. Now, I represent a district that has a large immigrant population. It includes Hispanics, Caribbeans, and Southeast Asians, especially the Bangladesh community. And in my constituent office, these are the kinds of issues that he's addressing with this plan that affect our community. People who are afraid to use the services that are victims of domestic violence, who are afraid to enter the court system because they feel like they're getting the runaround and they're not getting the help that they should get as a victim of domestic violence. People who are afraid to open up bank accounts because they can't get IDs, and so it almost compels them to violate law by getting false IDs. People who are driving already in our streets but can't get insurances because they're undocumented and can't get a driver's license. And so I commend the public advocate for this wonderful plan, and it demonstrates that Bill de Blasio cares deeply about the immigrant community and is pragmatic about the fact that they are here. These are people that live in the dark, the people that live in fear, people with children, people that support their family, and we have to do everything we can to make sure that we recognize that we treat them with compassion, and we realize they are contributing to the city and to the state of New York. Para mis amigos en la prensa hispana, el plan que ha demostrado aquí Bill de Blasio demuestra que él se preocupa por la comunidad inmigrante, especialmente la comunidad indocumentada en la ciudad de Nueva York. Esto es un plan sensible que va a ayudar a nuestros hermanos inmigrantes, personas que han sido víctimas de la violencia doméstica, personas que están guiando los autos pero no tienen licencia, personas que quieren abrir cuentas bancarias y no pueden porque no tienen identificación. Esto es un plan que demuestra que Bill de Blasio le importa la vida de las personas indocumentadas que viven en esta ciudad, que reconoce la contribución de nuestros indocumentados en la ciudad de Nueva York, y es un plan que le hará la vida más fácil a nuestros miembros de la comunidad que son indocumentados. Muchas gracias.
And now, a colleague who has done, I think, of all the elected officials I know, has done the most work with youth. And when Andy King has worked with young people over the years, helping them to further education, helping them to believe in their futures, he didn't bother to ask what their documentation status was. He made sure that everyone had a chance to become a part of this society. Councilmember Andy King.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Andy King. I represent the 12th District in the Northeast section of the Bronx. That district is a beautiful mosaic of my brothers and sisters from all countries and throughout the Caribbean. And I am grateful to be able to represent them. But today's conversation, which will allow Citizen Street to stand up at its best, I applaud the public advocate for recognizing that our neighbors, our brothers and sisters in New Yorkers who are undocumented, should have the rights of us, those here, as they participate in society. Today's conversation will allow us to get on the road to making sure immigration reform stands true and is accomplished. You know, it's bigger than what's happening in Washington, D.C., and I pray and I wish that they would get it right and allow politics to sit in the back room as opposed to on the front table. We need to make sure that our brothers and sisters who are working in our communities, who want to use libraries, and the public advocate talk about my work with youth, and a lot of their parents are struggling from time to time because they have to hide out in the shadows. And when kids need to get grants or financial aid, they're caught up in the whirlwind of what America has not been able to accomplish, which is immigration reform. So today, I think is really the right step, the best step to get us on the path to join the other states who've already moved legislation to make sure that our brothers and sisters who are undocumented find the right path to become documented residents of the state of New York and also the country of the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Public Advocate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, we have the pleasure of having one of the great voices of conscience of this city here. And Bertha Lewis, I don't think we can count how many important causes she's been a part of, but lately she's really been a national leader on the question of immigration reform and making sure it is inclusive of every kind of person from around the world. There's been particular controversy over how Caribbean immigrants have been treated, most notably by our own city government, our own Department of Education. And long before this was a front page issue, Bertha was leading the charge, and she's a strong voice both here and in Washington for truly comprehensive immigration reform. Bertha Lewis of the Black Institute.
Let me thank the public advocate for being bold. Let me thank the public advocate for being real and stepping up to do this. Believe me, he's going to get a lot of flack for it. But if you get flat, just know we got your back. I'm the founder and president of the Black Institute, and we are an organization that's an action tank. We're a think tank that takes action. We have been organizing Black immigrants because the face of immigration is not just Latino. And these reforms are practical and real because they actually address real problems. We don't know what comprehensive immigration reform is going to look like coming out of Washington, D.C., or even if it's going to pass in Washington, D.C. But I can tell you this. There are folks who become undocumented not because they jumped over a fence, not because they just didn't have any papers at all. There are practical reasons why many Black immigrants become undocumented because they are visa overstays. But there are those who become undocumented through no fault of their own, and they're young people. I want to introduce you to Alden Nesbitt, who is the co-founder of the International Youth Association, to briefly tell his story and how he became undocumented and how some of these reforms will actually aid him. Alden?
Thank you. Like Bertha said, I'm a member of the Black Institute. I am the co-chair of the International Youth Association. And like she said, through no fault of my own, I ended up undocumented. 12 years ago, the Department of Education recruited highly skilled professional teachers from the Caribbean and asked them to come to this country to teach in some of the worst schools in New York City. 12 years ago, the Department of Education promised them that they will have green cards for their family and for themselves. 12 years later, my mother now has 2 undocumented children, and like my co-chair here, a lot of the children are aging out day after day after day. 2 years ago, when I became 21, I found out from a letter from USCIS that I was undocumented and could no longer be in status to live amongst my peers as an equal. I found out that I was then what I like to believe a secondary citizen, or someone who lacks identification to